So, good afternoon, everyone. Let's start the session, first session. And I'm Dr. Lalita Joshi, and a mother of a child with Down syndrome. He's 27. And I'm a gynecologist by profession. And I have been working in Down syndrome, field of Down syndrome, advocating and educating people and children with Down syndrome as well as their parents. I'm also the chairperson of Down Syndrome Association of Nepal. So welcome you all to this session. Yes, and I forgot, I'm also, my friend reminded me, I'm also one of the 3 vice presidents of Down Syndrome, Asia Pacific Down Syndrome Federation of Nepal. I represent Nepal. So the first speaker would be Mrs. Deepa Gaure. She is an educator and inclusive education researcher, and she's a reading consultant for special needs and a mother of a 10-year-old girl child. Deepa has worked in education sector for about a decade and has left her job to pursue her interest in the disability advocacy, inclusion research, and sharing the experiences on her own website. She is actively involved in parents' movement and advocacy. I request Dr. Deepa Gaure to give her talk program.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited and honored to be here today. The keynote speeches were extraordinary. And if you find me a little emotional through my speech, it's mostly because of the people that spoke in the morning, nothing to do with me. Every time my phone used to ring, and I used to see my daughter's school number flashing on the screen, I would almost have a heart attack. Things are getting better now, and every time there is a call from school now, it's only a nervous breakdown. I'm sure many of you whose children go to school would share the feeling with me. But every heartbeat I miss with these calls, I get many more back with pride when I see her giggling with her classmates in the corridor, in the classroom, or enjoying school sports day, or a theater play. And I get pumped up to fight with the system all over again, because I know inclusion isn't easy, but it's surely worth it. Since the day our children are diagnosed and we come to terms with it, we dream of providing them with the best of the opportunities. We take them to countless therapies, give them supplements, work day and night to make them included in society. And when the school gives us a difficult time, we feel cheated, deceived. We expect them to know better, they're professionals, to treat us better. Let me give you an advice. Whenever that happens, don't get hurt. Take a step back and try to see objectively, from a distance, and you'd find not only the reasons, but also the solutions to have more effective communication with the schools. It is imperative that we understand the school structure a little. As most of you already know, the schools are a result of the industrialization process. A school works on mass production of a prototype. The instructions are majorly created for people with an average IQ. And there are little or no resources, training, or information on diversity. Though some schools are trying to change this, but largely we are still struggling with intent than the lack of resources. Another important thing to remember as parents is that disability rights or inclusive education is a relatively new concept for our socio-political systems and for the world at large. everyone is still trying to interpret and create various models to get it right. Come to think of it, there are 21 types of disabilities, along with a spectrum within each one. And schools have no clue about these. It's natural for them to feel anxious and to not take up the challenge. Right to education has helped us to get in the schools, but the school remains skeptical about our children being able to manage in the classroom. So what can we do as parents to help facilitate that? I would say train them. It's called school readiness. Start training your child for the schools as soon as you can. Train them on following instructions, increasing their attention span, retention, toilet training. Teach them basic shapes, colors, work on speech, fine motor skills, gross motor skills. These are few of them, and sending them to a play school could be a great way to train them on enhancing the skill sets. It would help school in better inclusion so that they don't have to start from the scratch. However, there are children who would learn at their own pace. I would suggest to not push too much, but still keep trying. To look at the whole thing in perspective, we also need to be aware of our rights as parents of children with Down syndrome. RPWD Act, that's Right of Persons with Disability Act 2016, Section 15, 16, 17, and 18, extensively talk about inclusion and education. If I have to put it in simple words, inclusive education can be understood as a fundamental human right of all persons with disabilities, and how enforcing it is a job of the government. It is a process that facilitates a continuing and proactive commitment to the elimination of barriers impeding the right to education, and practice of mainstream schools to accommodate all students. There are many more points which you can read online, and as parents, you all must. Now, the challenge that we as parents face is that most of us are not sending our children to government schools, where this act can be followed through and the authorities can be held responsible. The challenge is we are sending our children to a kind of private autonomous bodies, where the government can only suggest but not enforce. Though there are provisions to report schools to the government, and I'm happy that many states are bringing schools to the task, but how many schools' licenses have been cancelled for not admitting a child with special needs? None. So we still have a long way to go. Another thing to read and have a copy of is CBSE and its provisions that help our children in different classes. The provisions like scribe and compensatory time, exemptions from the third language, flexibility in choosing subjects, and modified alternate question paper. And as our children's advocates and parents, we must be aware of all of these to demand from the schools. Coming back to the educational institutions, most schools in India interpret inclusion on their understanding that is generally based on the beliefs, prejudices, and perceptions. Beliefs like our children are disruptors or invaders, and without them, everything will be fine. And if the child is not doing the same task that everybody in the class is doing, he is not learning. In most schools, children with special needs are sent out in resource rooms at the time of academic classes and are only with the age group peers at the time of co-curricular activities like assembly or computer time or music. But they proudly call them inclusive schools. I want to ask you, are they inclusive? Are these schools inclusive? Of course not. Then there are other interpretations where the child is sitting in the class doing his own thing while the whole class is involved in a separate task. Is that inclusion? Of course not. There is another model where there is a shadow teacher or a personal aide, that's quite in a fad these days, who sits with the child in the corner of the class and helps him with a curriculum. Of course, a reduced curriculum. None of these are foolproof models of inclusion. And in most cases, the child's school will fall somewhere within these categories. But we need to be sure of what we need from the school and what is our ultimate objective of sending our child to the school. In most of the cases, parents think only about social inclusion and peer interaction as the primary objective and don't pay any attention to the academics, which then result in the child feeling left out beyond nursery and kindergarten. So it's also important for the parents to invest in literacy and numerical skills, along with everything else. That will give the child confidence, self-respect, and a sense of belonging to the class at large. She would also be meaningfully engaged if he is doing the same topics that everybody in the class is doing. But how can we do the same topic? There is clearly a cognitive deficit. We all will come to that later. Now let's talk about what do you need to do to help school and his teachers be comfortable with him and also know more about the child. The first thing would be information. The truth is, not many people in the school may have heard or know about the disability your child may have. So making an informative package, like a physical package, something along the lines of All About Me, can be sent to the school and distributed to all his teachers. This package should carry information about the child, his disability, his medical history, his strengths, his challenge areas, important things to know about him, and some practical solution or strategies in case there is a behavioral challenge. This package can be extremely handy for all the teachers and will empower them to include your child better. Additionally, a one-page visual guide can be put up on bulletin board, introducing the child that can be read by other support members in the school and other teachers. Sorry, just a second.
Deepa, you have 5 minutes more.
Training and sensitization. Training and sensitizing the staff and the classmates. I've been doing it for the last 3 years, and it has been doing very well for my daughter. If the school allows, plan a presentation for the staff, where along with all the above mentioned information, you can also share some videos, and where the teachers can directly ask you questions and their apprehensions. If you don't get permission for a presentation, the package can still be sent. Similarly, a small interaction should be kept for the classmates where stories around diversity can be told or a little discussion based on disability can happen depending on the age and grade of the child. Training the shadow teacher or the aide, it's extremely important. If the school allows or requires you to have a shadow teacher or a special ed teacher with the child, do train her to keep a distance from the child whenever needed. She should not just become an instruction machine. She should be trained to understand the situations where she should just let the child be. Also, building a relationship with the school. We need to remember, the schools are not obliging us by taking our children in their school. But it's also worth noting that they have thousands of other children too. We don't live in a utopian world, not yet. So keeping things in perspective can be a great way to avoid being too impulsive at certain times. Asking the right questions without pointing fingers and showing that you are there as a resource and not as a critic is vital. The relationship between you and your child's school is going to be crucial and demanding. Like other relationships where we are emotionally invested. There will be ups and downs, anger, disappointments, and loads of tears. But one will have to learn to choose their battles. Schools are scared of parents that know their rights. Another very important thing is, schooling is just a part of inclusive education, and one has to ensure that the child is included in all other activities as well. It could be theater, festival, music, annual day celebrations, carnivals, picnic, excursions, etc. It should be non-negotiables. Because by interacting with peers of similar age in an informal setting, our children can learn socially appropriate behaviors. Coming back to following the same syllabus by our children, we all need to know the term minimum learning outcome. Whatever we learned or read in our school years, a large part of it, or I can safely say that the most part of it, is not with us. We don't use trigonometry, Pythagoras theorem, atoms, or physics experiments every day. and now remember only a part of whatever was taught to us. Similarly, for our children, we need to make a list of learning outcomes which will help them learn whatever is going to be important for them, and all irrelevant information can be left out. Defining major 3-4 objectives every lesson can be extremely helpful for both parents and the school. Let me give you an example of milk. A child of 3rd grade, he doesn't need to know the types of cows and in which part of India are they found and how one kind of cow is different from the other one. The important information that they need to know is where does milk come from, who gives us milk, where does it get packaged, and what are different kinds of milk. That's more relevant and important from a life skill point of view. So for every concept or lesson that's going to be taught in the school, you can define objectives and then it becomes extremely easy to follow through. Alternate methods of knowing if the child has understood should also be shared with the teachers because they are not trained in it. So if the child can't write a descriptive answer, he can answer in multiple choice. Yes or no. Can he draw or answer orally? Medium is not important, content is. Also for every lesson, you have to think multisensory, or how to manage all the senses at least 3, visual, audio, and tactile. So if I'm teaching about animals, I would like to show them a video of the animals, make them listen to the sounds of the animals, show them pictures, toys, and also take them to the zoo. If we think of every topic that we are going to teach in multisensory way, we are doing a good service or a great service to our children and to the school. So as parents, think multisensory for every topic and come up with resources or ideas. They will be able to help your child better included in the classroom. Here are a few examples that I have done for my daughter. So before that, I would quickly tell you, these are 9 types of curriculum adaptations. I'll take just a few. So quantity of the task that is given to the child can be adapted. The time, again, can be changed based on what kind of disability the child has, level of support, whether he needs one-to-one, then the kind of inputs. Do we need a different input than just a plain lecture method? Level of difficulty. What do we expect as output from the child? Can he just draw and show us? What kind of participation? If it's a social science class and the child is still not at that level, can he hold the globe for the whole class? Alternate goals and substitute curriculum. You may find it online. And these are some of the modifications. I would like you to read. So this is one of the worksheet that we got in grade 2. And it's very confusing. What did I want my daughter to know about libraries? This. We keep books in the library. We should be quiet in the library. At a grade 2 level, if she knows these 2 things, I think those were my objectives. And if they can be met by modifying the worksheet, it serves my purpose well. Another one, and this is very interesting and you should read it, or I'll just read it out. One day, Lola was sitting alone in her bedroom and enjoying reading her favorite storybook. She was engrossed, when suddenly from the corner of her eye, she spotted something. It was a huge black spider. What do you think will happen next? Write your interesting and descriptive story in the space provided below. Write in a way that makes the person who reads it say, wow, a marvelous story. Now, if you're expecting this somebody who has Down syndrome, who has little or no speech, and is in grade 2 of a mainstream school, we are expecting too much. So this is what we did. One day, Lola was sitting alone in her bedroom, enjoying reading her book. Suddenly, she saw a spider, a huge black spider. What do you think Lola will do? So I've given her choices. Will she run out of the room or call her mama for help? Or will she be brave and kill the spider? Please draw a picture of Lola. Do you think it serves the purpose? Do you think it serves the purpose? Okay. Another one. So they had to know about bats. Long text. We did this. I wanted her to know that bat is not a bird, that they fly at night, And what do they eat? 3 objectives out of the whole chapter of bats. Can we accomplish it by making the text simpler for her to understand? Highlighting is done for her to make question answers easier. So this is one of the comprehension sheets that we had made for bats. Can you see it? So what is a bat? 2 choices, bird or mammal. And because we've been doing mammal, she knows it's a mammal. Sometimes you need to give them ridiculously easy choices so that they can pick the right one. So if I want to ask a first grader child with DS, where do birds live? I would not say in the tree or in the nest. That's confusing. I would ask in the water or in the tree. That's easy for them to pick up, right? So you need to learn, you need to design the curriculum thinking from their point of view. What would you want to choose and you want to make them confident, right, at the end of it. Okay, this is another one. Just a quick, I'll go. We were to teach about mammals. I just want to show, because our children are visual learners. This is how you can make some chapters simple. Mammals give birth to babies. Visual. Visual. Can you see it? These are some of the ideas that you can implement in your curriculum, or you can share with the school. So every concept or topic that is going to be taught, you can create such presentations for the school and give it to the teachers, and they're going to be thankful. Apart from that, you can make something like this. So we had to learn about milk. Just a quick 1 minute book. This was a hard copy and a PPT that we have made, and teachers were happy to share it with the class as well.
So Deepa, how many minutes are you? More? No, it's already gone, 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. I'll just finish it in the next 2 minutes. Okay. Also, I want to show you this video. It's a little important. So, how do I?
Today, Harsha is invisible today. She's not here. So I'm going to do it all alone.
We had to
I'm
learn
going to tell
the
you
steps
steps
in
of the
sequence
seed.
on how to sow a
Okay,
seed,
I'll
how the
start.
plant works. So, we made a poem out
First
of
we
it.
dig the soil.
First, we dig the soil.
Then we put the seeds.
Put.
Then we level the field.
Level.
And then
And then
we water the plant
So we had to learn the sequence in the whole sequence. It was important, the teacher said, so we made a poem. First we dig the soil, dig. Then we put the seed, put. Then we level the field, level. And then we water the plant every day. So it can be quite simple, auditory, visual, however you want to play it. Okay, we're done with that. I'm sorry, I'm just going to finish in the next 1 minute. Okay, so the important thing to remember is that consistency is the key, and that today your child may be 5, but very soon he'll be 15. So not to lose the bigger picture is also important. Summing it all up, I'd like to say that inclusion isn't just a milestone. It's a philosophy with life-changing implications. It will exhaust you, and you may question your decision to put your child in a mainstream school. But I would still reiterate the fact: inclusion isn't easy, but it's surely worth it. Thank you so much.
So Deepa, it was a wonderful presentation on inclusive education, and by your presentation we learned that it's a difficult task but not impossible. So any questions from the audience? I can give you 2 minutes. None. So I think we'll proceed with the second. Deepa, there's a question for you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the presentation. I just wanted to ask you, like you were telling us about how school is scared of parents who know their rights. So I just wanted to ask you, how did you bring the school into the fray? Because like my brother, when we go to his school, like recently we went to his school, he's actually now going to turn 18. So that's an even bigger problem because schools are saying that he's going to become an adult. So how can we keep him into the same school? He's going to turn 18, but he's going to be in class 7. He's still in class 7 now. So there are some schools who just include our children, like children with Down syndrome, but they don't have any provisions. I think, and the choice is between schools who don't even include children with Down syndrome into the fray and schools who just include our children into the fray without actually paying attention to the kids. It's just in the name, just namesake. So could you tell us some actual legal work that we could do so that we could actually request schools? Because I don't know about Delhi, but we're living in Lucknow. So there aren't any schools that are actually working on this. So could you tell us some legal
See,
works
legalities, as I've told you, I mean, thank you for the question. The legalities I've told you, you can go through the RPWD Act 2016. And also, I think most of us, we don't even know how the school system work. Who do schools answer to? So there would always be a school inspector. A school inspector looks after about 10 schools in your district. Whether the school comes under MCD or NDMC or and do you even go there? There is a commissioner sitting there who you can go to. If there's a problem, you can meet the school inspector and tell them that they're not going to include the child. However, your brother is 18. The RTE Act serves only children that like till 14. And for the mainstream schools, they can say no. I mean, I'm afraid. I mean, there are flaws and we can't do much about it. So at 18, it is difficult for the schools also for you to kind of make them agree to it. But for the children who are younger, I would say first study the system. Spend some time, study the system, who the schools are answerable to. And if you can go and meet the inspectors, school inspectors, and keep them on your side. Show them your struggles. The schools are afraid. As I told, schools are afraid of the people who know their rights. Tell them that you went to a conference and then you met the Commissioner of Disability. Half of the work would be done. All I'm saying is there are laws, there are provisions, but after a certain age, especially in terms of mainstream schooling, may not work. Thank you.
Okay,
Hello,
thank
ma'am.
you.
I have a question.
Well, we are running short of time. Could the questions be put to the end of the
Just
session?
1 second, like, do we have any NCRT books for all this?
Oh, absolutely. NCERT has some great resources. If you just Google provisions for special needs children in NCERT, you'd find a lot of ways to modify the syllabus. And also NCERT, I've told you some CBSE provisions, I told you. NCERT, not provisions, NCERT would give you the ways and means for inclusion. The provisions are in CBSE. That's what you're asking, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but do we have some special books for all this?
Special groups.
Books.
Special books for
Children, like, what all should be included, so much only should be included in their inclusive.
No, I'm afraid
studies.
not. You'll have to do that exercise with the teacher. See, every
So we
disability is
should-
different and every child is different. They cannot have one book that would serve every child in the classroom.
But at least we should think for having this such type of book so that at least some children, like our 50% are benefited. I think that will be.
No, NCERT do have some books. It's not that they don't have. There is a whole department in NCERT that works for our children. So you can visit NCERT and ask. They do have some material, but you would not find it for every concept and everything that's going to be taught. That's what I was thinking. Thank
So
you.
we are running short of time, so I would advise the other people who have some questions, keep it to the end, or you can talk over at lunchtime, interact with her. So the next two speakers are self-advocates, energetic advocates who stand as role models. And I think there will be many more, but today there are two. They would be speaking on, It's Pranay Bode and Mr. Karan Subramaniam. So I'll introduce Pranay Bode. Mr. Pranay Bode has been working with the Leela Compass Mumbai for 10 years. He is a recipient of National Award from the Excellency President of India as the most efficient employee. He has received World Down Syndrome Day Award for advocacy for his rights and advocacy inclusion of persons with Down syndrome. Pranay has also received numerous awards from NGOs like BC Shah Memorial Award, Arihant National Social Award, and Ajat Shatru Award. He has bagged gold, silver, and bronze medal each in various events in roller skating at Special Olympics, National Games. So that's Pranay Bode. Would you just come in and give your presentation? He's also coming with you, okay? So the second speaker is Karan Subramaniam. He's completed his degree in animation from Loyola College, Chennai, and he is the only player playing chess in the world and Special Olympics basketball gold medalist. So welcome to the dais, and please give your presentations.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Okay. PowerPoint. My happiest moments. My happiest moments with my gold medal, my Australia gold medal, Special Olympic Australia. Next. My medal pose and honor from Australia. I am receiving gold and bronze medal and Special Olympic USA. News about and my TV and award and abilities from Special Olympic dais. Final match basketball team Australia and India Special Olympic USA. I am match passed in the Australia. My medals. I am interacting freely US Cups. I am receiving a Stand Achievement Award for the Down syndrome. Congrats, Chennai. Clipping from Down syndrome. Congrats, Chennai. Best Sportsmanship Award from Dialogue. Award from I am Delegance Award from Dialogue College. I am receiving regulatory award in the Dialogue. I'm getting appreciation from Rika Amma and Krishna of Special Olympic Program in Chennai. My participation in British Parliament program Special Olympic dais abilities. I'm getting honor from IGO and Basketball Association in Chennai. I was Hanabai from Vasma College and Itraj College. Hana from Sri Ram Engineering College. My participation in social awareness program at Chennai. My welcome speech, Special Olympic and Olympic sports Special Olympic Chennai, USA. I am in received training at Delhi, and I met Anna University in Chennai. Welcoming Tamil Nadu Governor and World Chess Champion Viswanand Anand. I am playing chess tournament at Chennai. I am receiving the award. I am receiving Behind Wood Award for the Ceylon movie. I was Sana from Rotary Club. I am receiving award Rotary Club at Chennai. My Dada friends. After I met classmate after Viva and friends me at Chennai airport. Myself and my friends. Next. I am a great fan of actor Vijay. My birthday celebration with my classmate, with my Lala College. My birthday celebration with my friends at home. My giving to the FM interview, Ceylon FM interview. Clipping from Ceylon movie shooting, Ceylon movie, clipping from Ceylon movie shooting movie. One face post and FM interview. One face post and my FM interview. My modeling and project. Clipping from my animation. My clipping graphic design. Movie promotion and interview. Media published in the Hindu. Media published and Tamil and there is magazine. Media published and Hindu and Tamil in the magazine Hindu and Tamil magazine in paper. Thank you very much for listening self-advocacy.
Thank you, Pranay. It was wonderful presentation. Now, the next second speaker is Karan Subramaniam. Okay. So, this is Pranay. I'm sorry, I confused the person from the other. So, I've already read the introduction of both. So, Pranay, would you please give your presentation? Please start, yes.
Hello friends, as time before you, as a representative of Safi and people like me. Safi stands for Save Accuracy Forum of India. It is not very often that we stand before a large gathering like this. Thank you for the opportunity given to me to speak at this conference. We are not different from anyone else. We are the same needs in life that all do, including place to live, meaningful employment, opportunity to enjoy the company of friends and family, having a role in the community. We want to form an identity as an individual. While we try to form our identity we need to keep our ties with our families. At this time, the forces pulling us apart are stronger than the forces binding us together. There are two most important things that limit overload and achievements. One, keeping us away from the community. Two, law expectation from us. The world has come a long way in understanding us, but there is still a tendency to focus on the label, Down syndrome, which needs to be changed. Today, growing up in the community with the same rights and responsibilities is important to the development of the people like us. The new law in our country speaks about rights of persons with disabilities. People like me can understand a great deal than we can express verbally. Very often that abilities are underestimated based on the verbal communication. We all know many of us speak clearly, but a large number do not. You all know we are unique with our own talents. Most of the people like me growing up today are able to lead quite ordinary life in the community, given the same opportunities to realize our full capacity, which prove ourselves to lead full life as contributing members of the family. Today, the law of the country rights of persons with disabilities, giving us our rights to be treated with dignity and respect. We have the responsibility to treat others how we would like to be treated. Rights to be rights to speak out for ourselves. Do not give a set of call. Rather listen to us. Rights to make our decisions and have responsibilities. We are responsible for our actions. Rights to vote. We are responsible for participating in our community. Right to privacy. We have the responsibility to respect others, people, rights to privacy. Right to know my money, it's my money. For example, paying our bills and taxes on time. Right to say no. We have the responsibility to speak up and tell people no. If we don't want to do something. I want to say that we cannot afford to be left behind again. I ask you, do you agree with me?
Yes.
Thank you once again.
So hats off to these two self-advocates, Pranay and Karan. They are real good advocates, and I see a bright future for the children with Down syndrome with such talented self-advocates. So I go on to the third speaker. The speaker is from Bhutan, Mrs. Bedagiri. She has been spending her time since last couple of years, maybe a decade or so, on advocating and fighting for the rights of people with disabilities. And she also is the chairperson and founder of a organization called Disability Bhutan. So, Veda, request you to give your presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my talk. I'm from a small country, and we are neighbors. I'm from Bhutan. Actually, I work for government, and I have started an NGO as a parent of a child with disability. She's no more, but she is my inspiration, and she has given me the responsibility to look after the children whom I could not serve for her. So, when I talk about Down syndrome in Bhutan, the most inspiring and the most positive things is our country head. The king and queen are very supportive to our children with special needs. So you can clearly see how supportive and how positive they are. So, before going to any other, let me introduce the organization that I work for. Is the organization called Ability Bhutan Society. I got lots of questions when I named the society as Ability Bhutan Society, because they were saying that, why not disability? But for me, as my journey with my daughter for 17 years, it gave me such an inspiration that disability is not which I was seeing on her. So though she was profoundly disabled, but for me, she was really able, looking into what I could not do for her. And it has been registered as a civil society organization. We work very closely with almost all the ministries who needs to support us and for the community at large. And the biggest strength and blessing is our Queen of Bhutan, who is the patron of our organization, and she really loves children and senior citizens. This is another inspiration that the king and queen are with the children, and especially with Down syndrome. The vision of Bhutan, let's say, is to see all abilities and have equal rights and equal opportunities for access to their environment and to improve the quality of life for children, for people with special needs. This is again, whenever we have any of the awareness and any of the function, any of the events related to special needs or disability, we usually invite the politician, parliamentarians, king, queen, so that they will be also a part of our life. Until and unless we don't involve, it is very difficult for us to voice out for our children and the families. Mission about Bhutan, let's say about Bhutan, when we look into people with disability, we support and we really wanted to educate the parents and the community members about disability together so that we can improve the growth of every child and the person's ability. We have a few programs for people and the children with Down syndrome. We have center-based and home care intervention. This is mostly for the children and the families to empower and try to see as early as possible so that they can be independent and be inclusive at the later age of their life. We also empower family support programs where we usually bring the parents together so that they will not feel that they are alone. We educate the families to create awareness to be a voice for their families and others who live with Down syndrome. We also trained on different areas of identification, how to do the referrals, how to manage individuals with Down syndrome to the families as well as the staff. And the major area is advocacy and awareness on all disabilities. Since 2014, we have started observing Down Syndrome Day, and that was the first day Her Majesty visited our center. So we have been observing since then. Before, there were lots of improvement, but we never had observed the Down Syndrome Day. So since 2012, we have been observing Down Syndrome Day, and when we observe, we will not observe in one city. Though Bhutan is very mountainous, very difficult to reach, but nothing is impossible when you really have a will. So we have been trying to almost capture and include all the districts so that every person needs to understand that what actually we are talking about and what we are trying to voice out, and also how we wanted to include them. So when we look into observance, we don't have a self-advocates really in Bhutan because we could not really try to focus on many of the areas. So what we have been doing is we have been trying to empower and educate the parents actually first, so that the parents can help to advocate for their child. There are challenges, it's everywhere around the world. So there will be always stigma and ignorance, because Bhutan, as